Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. Julie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on. Will you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yes, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Julee Portner, and I'm a developmental specialist. I work with babies and parents, and I help them to establish and maintain easy feeding. But really, that goes beyond just like, is it breast or bottle, or how much are we giving, or these sort of routines that seem to be kind of time-stamped in us, or this cultural storyline. But really to dive into this really maybe more intuitive sense, more knowing within, and trusting the guidance, going beyond sort of these traditional numbers and weights and things, and using that just as a big verse to just riff off of and experiment with what's going to work for you versus a real solid, it has to be this way or this way. And if it isn't, it must be wrong. Yeah. So it's a blend and a mix of a lot of different supports for parents and babies. And it's so much fun. And yeah.
I'm excited to dive into this. As you know, I have my little one here, but how did you get into that line of work? And tell me, do you have kids, ages? Give me the rundown.
Yeah. So for me, mom was always the title that I aspired to. That was, I'll do many other things, but if I can be a mom, that is going to be it for me. And I am so fortunate that I am blessed with 4 amazing, beautiful, healthy, unique individuals who are, my goodness, almost all adults now. I can't even believe it. It's 24, 22, 18, and 15. But I'm still in it, and it's a forever job.
Oh, yeah.
And not even a job. It's just something that you become and evolve and grow with your children. And if you're connected in that way, which for my experience, has been around feeding. I didn't even really realize that I was paying attention to food or eating or feeding or even diving into like those aspects. Like as a teenager, I worked on a farm and I milked cows and took care of calves. So, I mean, that just was like right there. And then my aunts and uncles, I took care of a lot of younger cousins and watched all of that, their growing up and their feeding. And then I became a speech pathologist. I decided I wanted to go to school so that I would have a degree and I would be able to, I'm curious. I really enjoy that, how things work and being of service to others and helping people. And one of the specialties of speech pathology is eating and feeding and swallowing. And as I dove more into that and helped people throughout their lifespan from birth all the way through, we're all talking and eating. So communication and nourishment is the sort of baseline for all humanity. And how we do it and how it functions on a physical level is very important, but then also how we can go beyond that. And that's really the realm that I think a lot of parents are in today, like this metaphysical, right? Going beyond the physical aspect of feeding and all that goes into that is so important, but it's also we use these words like holistic and, but what does that really mean? And so interweaving this dynamic of these aspects of care, both from a personal perspective and a professional perspective. And when I was working as a speech pathologist, I just got involved with a lot of babies. I started working with some of the most vulnerable of the infants in the NICU. And, this neonatal intensive care where feeding is so specific.
Yeah.
We have to be really right. And what that even does to the confidence of the parent, how their ability shifts and their knowing what they're seeing and being able to interpret that. And so I saw so much how it was going beyond how can I take even what I knew as a growing up and learning aspects of care about feeding and health and the dynamics of connection between mind and body. And I left traditional practice and went to study more. But before that, I was a full-time mom for many years. So for 14 years, I got a degree and worked on that and worked with people and had major fulfillment and waited a little bit longer to have children so that I could have that first.
Yeah.
And never really had huge goals to do what I'm doing now. I'm very fulfilled and happy to be doing that, and really pleased to be an example of my for my children that these transitions that I talked about in the beginning are forever, and we can always change and become and evolve and be flexible and nourish ourselves and be in communication in that way in a very deep space. But I think yeah, I am. I think that was my biggest really training, was being a mom at home with my kids all the time, 24/7. What is that? What does that even look like in a life? How can you even balance such things? I have such respect for so many of these moms who see me who are going back to work after 6 weeks or 12 weeks, and how to support them through that dynamic, the shift in them, their expectations of themselves, and to become the parent that they know they want to be and can be. Yeah, I think that's huge.
Yeah, well, tell me about what it looks like when someone comes and starts, working with you, or who's calling you and what should they be calling you about? I'll ask it that way.
Yeah, sure. So really anybody who's struggling with feeding, and for the most part, that really looks like in the beginning. Right now, I work with a lot of moms prenatally and also after birth who are saying, wow, I didn't realize it would be this way, or I had it a certain way maybe the first time around and I want it differently, or I have stories or questions or fears and this is what I want and I know I need help. And people who are currently struggling, that is makes up the primary part of my practice. And it can be from struggling with anything. I'm not sure how to get the latch. I don't know if there's enough, to is it a tongue and lip tie and how do we manage that, to emotionally things are really struggling for me. I'm transitioning. I'm not really sure how to communicate this in the best way. So it's really a mix of practical therapeutic approaches. I forgot to mention that I went after I had children and went back to work. Then I left traditional care to pursue this more integrative practice. And with that, I'm able to blend a lot more services. So beyond a speech language pathologist, I'm also a lactation consultant, which is a whole other certification in itself that really supports breastfeeding and feeding together. So those two credentials married together can be really helpful in the dynamic of what's really going on with the mom's body and the baby's body, and then how those certificate knowledge base blends together. And then through my childhood, I grew up, my father, who's no longer practicing medicine, but he was a holistic medical doctor, and he was interviewing people in the late 70s and 80s about holistic wellness and health when that was sort of just coming more into the mainstream. And so then we were, myself, my parents and my sister were introduced to these practices in focused attention and tapping into the inner voice and using breath and these things that are kind of coming to the front today. A lot of people are looking at, like, how do we do nervous system regulation? What does this mean to what's breath work? How and the links to that. So that was when I was in this traditional care in the hospital and I was working with these parents and I was seeing this, I was understanding an aspect of care that is a current gap in I think, a lot of care today. And I think there's a lot of different ways that it's being bridged, and it's a really exciting place to be in this care dynamic for sure. But I think, so the work with parents is focused on a mix of and a blend of all of these techniques and variety of skills that I can offer.
Yeah, you are a wealth of knowledge for sure. There's so much that it sounds like you touch on and can help with. So for a newer mom like myself, I mentioned to you before, my twins are 17 months old. I have a 2-month-old, and I did breastfeed my twins for just shy of 6 months. I'm breastfeeding my baby, and the thought process around that was, oh, I'll definitely have enough milk, because that's something that I struggled with the first time. Was I felt like my supply couldn't keep up with how much my twins were eating. So walk me through what that would look like if I were to call you and say, hey, I'm worried about my production. I had twins, so you think I'd have enough, but I'm not, or I'm worried. What would that road look like?
Sure. So I'm offering consultations virtually and also in person. So it would depend on where you were and how soon you needed help and what the help was. But all sorts of help is helpful. But these are oftentimes the first consult can be helpful virtually to talk through things, because there's a lot of things. There's a story with the feeding. And so there's often a lot of questions. And I think the part that is being recognized a little bit more now, but maybe not being put into practice, is the storyline of the birth and sort of the things that led up to where the feeding is at now, the mindset of the parents, what the desire is for the feeding, what are the goals, right? How is the feeding going now? And what seems to be working well and what needs to change. So it's a real diving deep into the specific aspects that make feeding work, and then customizing it to work for you and giving you real practical tips and solutions that you can do within your everyday. So it's not just like one more thing or my goodness, but it takes a little time to unravel these real set storylines or ideas of what is a quote unquote good feeding. And that's so subjective. And we also have a lot of kind of cookbooky recipes, which I think we have to have, because the way care is structured right now makes it flow in a particular way to have moms be giving birth in the way that we do traditionally. And so there's no criticism in any of that. It's just a critique of how it's working for you, and maybe how to see it from an expanded viewpoint, and looking at it as like feeding is forever. So everybody has questions. Let's see, right. She needs to eat. Exactly. So just do it. So this is what our sessions are like. Exactly. So take your time, right?
Yeah.
And we just assess it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about what it was like for you after having, been home with your kids, how it was transitioning to then leaving your previous job or field and going off on your own.
Yeah. So it was, to go off on your own is a big leap. And to leave for a job that you started to go and have kids also, right? All of these things are a shift in our perception of who we are. But guess what? We get to choose.
Yeah.
Right? If we're really, and so that's, and so I think knowing where I wanted to go, who I could reach out to for support, and accept that I might know a lot of things, but I certainly don't know everything, and I don't want to do everything, and can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And also can't be anyone if I'm not being someone to myself.
I love how
And that's the real gift that moms can learn to give to themselves, which then reverberates forever in their relationship with their kids, no matter how they're feeding. So it isn't so much about, oh, I did it for this long, or even though I think no matter how you're feeding, if you're feeling good about it and you're at peace and you know it's right for you, that's the magic right there. That's like the place that if we can get moms there and help them, then that shifts so much.
Yeah. So talk to me about what advice you have for moms who are struggling with that, going back to being everything for everybody and being someone for yourself. What advice do you have for them, or what did you apply in your life as you made that transition?
Yeah, so something that I work with moms now because I noticed that I was doing it for myself, like coming back to some of those practices that I learned even as a child and then have practiced a lot more, especially over this past decade,
Mm-hmm.
is when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, coming back to the myself, which is a practice.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we know what is wellness. Many of us know what that is. Many people who are looking at anything online, especially parents, and anybody listening to this probably, right, who's like interested in how can I be my best? Where can I find my community, myself, my right, what's going to be right for me? And I think that we can get overwhelmed in what they say and what we heard and what we look up. And it's not about what we know. And if we don't know, guess what? It's like a second away. We just have to ask online,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's not just when we find out, is it true?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, my goodness, I know, but how can I do it? So again, it's not like what we know, it's what we do. And sometimes these things seem like one more thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, how am I going to add something else now? Now I got to do this too. And so I think it's just putting little practices into place throughout the everyday. And so whether that's the little practices that I'm showing you to support with your baby for feeding or the mom for whatever the technique is that we're working on, but the overarching is the wellness. How can we tap into, right? So I just think I remember it through the breath. The breath is the gateway, really. I just say, just wherever you are, it's available for you. You don't need anything special. It's always right there. You can do it with your eyes open or closed. You can lay down, sit up, standing, inside, outside. It's just takes a second. And the more you do it, the more you tap in, the more the nervous system settles down and everything begins to relax. So even like if you do it right now as you're feeding your little sweet girl, right? And you just take in a deep breath, right? And you just hold it and then you let it out real slowly and you maybe do it with a little bit of an intention.
Yeah.
And suddenly then maybe you go in for another.
Yeah.
And you just kind of keep repeating that. And through that, you can sort of release the all that like stuff that isn't really real. And it also calms your baby like in a huge way because you're so connected. And then everybody starts to relax. And then the answers become clearer.
That's huge. How do you recommend someone practice remembering that breath work in times of stress or, feeding frustration, whatever it may be? I feel like, having the practice is one thing, but remembering to use it can be difficult. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, so part of the work, especially with the brand new mom or the mom before, are practices that are just incorporated in some of the sessions that we do and then continue to remind or have like kind of homework or things like that to But for just practical everyday, how to remember, some people set a timer, or they'll just say, every time I'm sitting down, as soon as my baby is settled into the feeding,
Mm-hmm.
I take this deep breath, or I'm sighing out. So it's almost like becoming aware of it and then intending to yourself, okay, I'm gonna try this during the feeding.
Yeah.
It may come to you in the feeding because we tell ourselves things and our brain remembers. We have certain activating systems in our body that remind us. Yeah, so that can be helpful. I think you can talk it over with your partner or your friend. You can have a little build it into community. You can even do it with your kids. You can, when you feel frustrated, you can say, "Hey, let's take a deep breath,"
Yeah, I do.
and then suddenly you're doing it with them.
Yeah, I do that with my 17-month-old, which is funny because I didn't even realize that I could be incorporating it outside of telling her moments of frustration. Because in those moments of frustration, I have a biter, and she doesn't do like bite. It's not a tantrum. She gets worked up and she bites. And what we've noticed works is we've taught her to take a deep breath, and she does. And it's actually had such a big impact. I mean, the first couple times we kind of like laughed, like, are we trying to teach a 17-month-old to do breathing? Is that, a lost cause? But we've been so impressed. So I think to implement it in moments of non-frustration might be interesting as well.
I agree. I think to even just promote that these long deep breaths when you're laying down and preparing for bed, because that's a real way to let things go, to release. It's kind of a pre-sleep practice, and it's something that you can then kind of even be saying, yeah, when we're feeling kind of remembering your day, going back through it with your child, right? And sort of reminding them, I really liked it when this happened. And then remember when we were talking this way and mommy said this, right? And then that's a time that you can even like repair or talk through something. And then, that would have been a really good time to take a deep breath, or when we're feeling that way, right? And so it's just teaching the inner dialogue, the inner communication. And you're doing that from the very beginning, especially even in these early feedings when you're taking a deep breath, because that's where we connect. That's where we then become in the here right now. And that's where kids live. And so that's where we can really make habits happen. And then they'll remind us, Mommy, take a deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think that's a blessing and a curse to have them be aware and remind us, right? So
Right. Yeah. So, right.
I love that you said to do it before each feeding because, I do have my routine, right? I normally have a timer out, and there's all these things that I have to unlatch my nursing bra, all the things that I do. And that feels very tangible to implement it. Like, okay, before I start the timer, I'm going to take a deep breath, or whatever it may be. So I really like that. Feels very practical and applicable. And I can feel like taking that one moment would make a difference in the feeding and in my energy levels. So I love that you shared that. So
I'm so glad.
talk to me about what it's like for you having older kids now and building your business. What has, what's been working for you and what's been challenging?
Yeah. So I think I'm working to approach it as a game, like a little like fun. I like to have fun, right? For me, when it's fun, it feels light and creative and real. And so I really enjoy that aspect of business and the freedom of being able to bring out the way that I want to do the support and have the autonomy to do that. I think it's been exciting to watch how my kids have explored their own creative ideas in business, especially my older children who are venturing off in their own world of business, which is really fun to see.
Yeah.
I think no matter any way the cards are dealt, life has challenges, and every new venture is, it's all in the way that you tackle it, that you hold on to it, that you reach out,
Yeah.
and just, how you're sort of living life. I think I I'm really honored that I get to be this kind of coach for moms. That I just say, I have real practical knowledge and also professional credentials and lots of experience. But like at the end of the day, I'm a mom, and that's been my focus. That I do this so that I can be make a life for my kids, so that I can do with them, so we can be together, and so it's this so I think it can be a really rich dynamic. But I also think, just like every other mommy, like, my plate is full. I have to lean on the things that bring me back to my center, and that remind me, like, we're all in this together. And I'm just really one step ahead of the moms that I'm helping. I'm just helping to light it a little bit brighter, make it a little bit clearer and easier. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that was so amazing, Julie. I love all the work that you're doing. Talk to me about the
Thank you.
community that you've started for moms.
Yes. So this is like, I'm so excited because it's taking it sort from this one-on-one, which I really am passionate about, just, coaching moms and working with them, but really bringing people together in a community. I call this community Mamas Make Milk. And I'm just thinking about milk as food. I mean, what mom isn't asking, you know, I even call my kids and say, what did you eat today? Did you have enough? How's it going? Right? Like,
Yeah.
we never it's on our mind forever. So you could imagine from the very beginning, if you're not really confident in how it's going, that can really, like, strike a chord that kind of runs through. Yeah. So I guess I lost my train of thought.
Tell me about the community. What's it called?
Yeah.
Who's it for?
So it's Mamas Make Milk, and it is for moms to get together and really talk about life as mom in these times today. The getting together around feeding struggles, I think, traditionally has been a lot of, you should try, or have you heard about, or listening to another mother's struggle, which I think all of those things have tremendous value, incredible benefit. I am looking to go beyond, to expand the dialogue of moms, to have them come to a space where they are figuring it out or have figured it out. So if they're asking, if they're challenging, they have help, either from me or someone else in their community. They have, like, a plan of care and a one-on-one support. So they're not coming to ask other moms who don't even probably know for themselves. I mean, even if everything's going right, you're not really sure if it's going right. Most moms,
Yeah.
in my experience, and parents just in general, right? And so it's a place to learn about nourishment, but nourishing yourself. So, like what I talked about first, sort of coming in for you first. So even though the common dynamic might be, yeah, we're going to educate a little bit about something about feeding or this next step, or what this certain dynamic is, it's really about practicing together in a supportive community. And it's going to evolve with the needs and the dynamic of the people who resonate with that. And I am thrilled about it, because I think it's just going to be fun. It's going to be an opportunity to invite in friends and experts that I know from all over, and people can share with moms. But it's more than that. It's just, hey, mom, practice something in wellness. Let's experience it. Maybe take it for a ride, try it out for the week, riff on it, come back together, and then share what worked for you. What did you find? And then we can build dialogue about our mom energy and how to control it, and how to, And so it's through the milk, because that's the mama juice. I mean, I mean, whether you're making milk or not, you are nourishing your baby and child. So
Yes, definitely. So
that's what it is.
where can people find it? Where can people find you? And tell us about what you offer as well.
Yeah. So right now, the easiest place to find whatever's on current an offer would be mamasmakemilk.com. And that's basically whatever is happening on social, or right now I'm just really birthing it. So like I'm still it's right, but it's there's a group of women that come together, and please check out Mamas Make Milk, and there'll be I'm going to share with you some sort of link or something for a little mini meditation practice I'm working on, and you can share it with your network. And I'm excited to be a part of your community too. Thank you for having this. But certainly, yeah, just check out Mamas Make Milk and join and have fun and try it out and just be a part.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for all of your tips, all of your insight. We're going to link your community down below in the show notes. And we'll also link that freebie that you spoke about and your social media, so people can connect with you. But yes, so grateful for this conversation. Thank you for the work that you're doing and for empowering moms of all different feeding abilities and preferences to come together and have a supportive space. So thank you so much.
Thank you too. Take good care.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.